The HX Collective explores the human experience through three main channels of life: work, relationships, and self. With raw, authentic conversations, the podcast investigates how challenges can become powerful teachers, leading to personal growth and deeper connections. Rooted in humanity-centered design, each episode reflects a commitment to doing good and doing well, featuring diverse voices and generational perspectives. Expect gripping stories of struggle and success, with thought-provoking discussions and concrete tools and tactics that encourage you to rethink your relationship with distress, helping you to establish your full human experience. This is the HX Collective channel. Hello, friends, and welcome to the next episode of the HX Collective podcast, where we come together in our united mission to elevate human flourishing. Now, I often say when I introduce my guest, what a treat it is going to be to hear from people. But when I tell you today is especially important, it's because we're having our second conversation with HX ally, Dean Carter. Now, I mentioned to you, if you met Dean in our first round of interviews at launch, you know that he has been an accomplished executive in every facet of human relations, human resources, human capital. He's a thought leader and has always been on the cutting edge of how to elevate human flourishing through the workplace, through relationships, and through self. And he's coming to us today. He's decided that it's not enough to accomplish the things he's already accomplished. No, he's taking it to a next level, friends. He has stepped into his first chief executive role, and he is now a best-selling book author. Dean has been a long-term friend. He was my mentor at the University of Texas, and I will tell you everything that I know about connecting relationships to a human experience. Dean Carter is an origin story for me personally. So buckle up, get something to write with, because he's going to say smart things and you're going to want to write them down. We're also going to include all of his contact information and information about the new book in the show notes. So Dean, how is that for an introduction, friend? Welcome. Please reintroduce yourself. It's like we were together
Oh goodness
ago, and then you're like, "Hey, I'm going to be top of my game in the things that I'm top of the game in. Like, I'm going to level up, friend. What are you doing? Please reintroduce yourself to our audience."
Well, thank you so much. It was always a delight, and been looking forward to this for a long time. Again, any moment that I spend with you is energizing, inspiring, delightful, and it's been from the very first day I met you. So you've been consistent for, I won't tell you how many years it's been. So it's been a while. And of course, you're the reason I got into human resources. I was like, oh, wow, Deb's doing that. She's doing a really cool thing. And kind of really set my journey in many, many years ago at Provision, which also is why I went to Provision from my original job, because I followed you there. So just a really quick, I'm kind of in a Benjamin Buttons moment. Yeah, here's how I see it. Here's how I see life. Life in your career starts about kind of late 20s, 30s. That's when you really start to jump in your career. That's about my beginning of 30s when I became a head of HR. And I've done that for the past 25, 30 years. I've been in human resources. And it's been glorious. I've learned so much. I've had significant, really amazing things happen to me, and really terrible things like cancer and parents dying and family dying and brothers and life, and just like stuff happened over the past time. And I'm 61, and I feel like I'm just loaded with wisdom. I have all this foundation of stability that I've earned through this to completely shed and start all over again, except I have the wisdom of 30 years and I have no idea what I'm doing. It's a cool moment because, Benjamin Button aged in advance. So I'm like a 61-year-old young person in my career.
Oh, cool.
So I have the opportunity to have, to be wide-eyed and to have imposter syndrome and to look at every moment as a learning opportunity. I can look at this again as my learning years, not my earning years. And I don't have to make money. I don't have to at this point. I can, but I don't need to. This is a point in life where I'm comfortable. I don't need anything. I've got a beautiful set of friends in life, and everything I make from now on, I'm giving away.
Oh, Dean, Man, I feel like we're here to talk about your book, Employee Experience Design, but I don't want to talk about that right this second. I want to talk about what it means to be 61 years old and Benjamin Buttoning your life and career. I think I, I am on the eve of my 60th season, and I can just say that I am stunned by how great it is from 50 forward when you are moving more and more to that place of clarity and freedom and autonomy. And then you layer in that economic piece where there's a certain level of just gratitude. And then you start to want less things. I mean, I have found impersonally that I used to say I needed certain things, but then I recognized the needs really were only the wants. And then all of a sudden you start to have a different appetite, a different desire, and it really shifts. So before we dig into employee experience design, can you just say a little bit more about that? Because
Yeah.
I think this aging experience and human flourishing, it's the fuel, it's the wisdom that gives us that fuel to know what exactly that means.
I didn't grow up in a world, in a culture that really respected wisdom and aging. It was something that like you did and you retired and died. Like there was just like this thing about, and I was told some things about my role, and they said, well, I've got another role for you that could be really interesting because you're approaching your sunset years. And and that really hit me hard. I'm like, I'm I'm in my sunrise years. I don't know what you're talking about. I love sunsets, but I'm not sunsetting anything. I'm like more fueled and powered than I've ever been. So I don't think, 60 something does you go, oh my God, that's where I'm going to start slowing down. I think that your pace is different. The way you climb the mountain is different. And you have all these wonderful tools and resources and wonderful people around you like you. And that I have built this really amazing world around me that helps eat me up the mountain. It was really lonely back in my 30s. And so it's just a really glorious time to think about the next 30 years. I think about all the things that happen between 30 and 60.
I
I want
know.
everyone to pause for a moment. Think about all the things that happened to you the past, whatever your age is from 30 to whatever that is. And then think about double that time, 30 to 60, all the things that happened in that time. What could happen between 30 and 90, which is likely we're going to live to that? How? That's Benjamin Button. So I'm like, I get to kind of be youth in my career and have the wisdom of a 60-year-old. I'd hope that people get that from here. Like aging isn't as terrifying as you might think. It's actually, there's really some cool stuff that comes with it.
I so there we're doing that's conversation number 3. I coach so many people who have that great fear of the critical milestones and believing they're going to be all used up. And I would say, if you orient yourself around what it means to not only lift yourself and work hard, but boy, the power of lifting others. I mean, that's the whole reason the HX Collective emerged, is because there was this recognition of otherness. And I want to step into that because I know that the words employee experience can be tossed around, and I know that essentially the how do you create capacities where employees can flourish. Will you give us a level set of like what is employee experience, particularly from the lens of this storied career in human resources, and now as a chief executive, like set the stage for us. What is employee experience when you think about flourishing, wisdom, human experience?
So I've been signing a lot of books, which is kind of a funny concept to me, being asked to sign a book. I was like, okay, what do I sign in the book? And this is, to me, summarizes my contribution to the book and what I hope people take about it. And we'll talk about it in a moment. But I just sent it, I, I just thank the person first. Like, thank you, Debbie. And then the next is, may everyone you know always be better than you found them. With gratitude, Dean. Like may everyone you know always be better than when you found them. That That's what I write in every book. And that's what I hope people take from it. It's just one as a reminder. It's kind of a poem-ish. And so we'll talk about this. My co-authors, we didn't want to write books. We thought there's enough business books. There's enough, a lot of them end up being paperweights and dust collectors. And so we didn't think people needed more paperweights and dust collectors. But we thought, given some of the experiences we had in life, that and people kept asking about about experiences at Patagonia, and my buddy Mark Levy at Airbnb, and Samantha Gadd and her work that she was doing called Humankind in Australia, that we might have a story to come together. So the book kind of wrote itself. Samantha, years ago, listened to a podcast from my buddy Mark, who we'd already talked about writing a book. And then we hadn't even talked about where we lived, because anyhow, we met each other. I'm like, you live here too? Anyhow, so, Samantha hears Mark talk about, the employee experience, about how to think about the work they're doing at Airbnb. She calls him because she wants to create a manifesto for employee experience. So she's called all these thought leaders around employee experience around the world to get them together for an event in Austin. Mark said, you need to call Dean Carter. So she called me, and she goes, I got this event in Austin. At the time, would love to have been there in person, but I was going to be a virtual contributor because that was 1 week after my cancer surgery. So I knew that I would be in New York getting a bunch of stuff removed that needed to be removed so I could be here today. And I said, I'd love to contribute. So she flew to New York. And the day I got out of the hospital, like still stitched up, and walked out of the hospital, literally out of my hospital bed, walked into a cab, had lunch with her at Balthazar, and I fell in love with her. She's just this amazing woman. And we wrote the manifesto. And at the end of that, in the dog walk with Mark, I just said, you know what? This book has kind of written itself. We didn't write it. We brought a whole bunch of people together that had put together their stories and their things and their concepts about what amazing experiences. So what's in the book are going to be, conversations about Airbnb and the perspective about shifting from HR to employee experience. We're going to talk about, regenerative ag. We'll talk about this in a minute and its impact on me, and the concept of putting more into people's lives than you take out. But there are other people's stories in here. So it wasn't going to be about just our story. And what we said, let's build a book that we hope that it's destroyed. Like we hope it's like earmarked and like looked at and ripped up and torn and highlighted and has coffee stains on it and it's completely ruined because it's used. And people go back to it from time to time because it's practical, because it's easy to understand. And it isn't a to-do list. It's a menu. And you can pick from this. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, that dessert looks good. Oh, this looks good. Oh, that's good 5 years ago, but I could use this 10 years from now. It's relevant for decades. That is practical. That is your own journey. That isn't about us. It's about them.
I love the origin story, and what a powerful testimony. There's that adage, you cannot give away what you don't possess. And I love the Sarah story, like that, to be able to bring together something that is rooted in lived humanity, that's rooted in shared values, that's rooted in spirit, that can drive outcomes and culture. The authors can only write the book that you've written if you possess the attributes that are necessary to have those things to give away. And so that's a really important insight. And I don't know that a lot of business books don't necessarily, they will give you like a recipe or a checklist, but I like this concept of menu and almost choose your own adventure. I think the words employee experience are certainly synonymous. We hear a lot of discussion around customer experience. I mean, it's been a hot area, and and continues to have this growing body of what do we need to do to really knock the socks off of our clients or our customers, and how do we create a my pleasure culture and hospitality and all the things that have really put a lot of central focus on customer or client experience. Give us, if you can, how is employee experience kindred? And what is a good definition? Because I know there are some people listening, particularly in organizations where the concept of even anything experiential they're not there yet. So give us a way of framing the subject matter, and then we're going to dig in to those foundations and those building blocks that could inspire people to want to take an action.
The word employee experience has been around. The concept of really how to think about this is probably best articulated in the Airbnb story. So there was a moment when the new leader of Airbnb, brought in someone, and I think he said something to the effect of, you can be HR, but don't mess this place up. He said, I think he used other words than that, but he said, don't mess it up. And so, like a lot of HR does, I think sometimes we mess things up. And so what they said is, we have a whole group, like you just said, focused on customer experience. Why don't we have the team focused on employee experience and do the same thing? And there's a lot of data and a lot of information and science of when employees have amazing experience, you give amazing experience to customers, and that flows through to your business. This is like a gazillion articles about this that like prove this. So it's not like unusual science, but it's data. It's not an opinion. And so that was where it started. And so what they did at Airbnb is they brought a bunch of employees together and a bunch of leaders. So this isn't about, how can we put a swimming pool in the middle of the office? This is about how do you work together to create experiences where people can do their best and bring their best. That you just want to shape that. How can you bring experiences out, do the best and bring their best and be their best selves? So that's what they did. Now I'm going to flip to Patagonia for a minute and give you an example of an employee experience. And some will not get this and some won't. So for years, when someone had a baby, and usually but someone nursing the baby is a woman. And the nature of when you're nursing is you have to keep nursing, and milk still has to come out to continue to produce milk. So if you travel and you're forced to travel, what you have to do is you do things you can't travel because you have to stay home with the baby and continue to nurse. Or if you do travel, you have to take a pump with you and you have to pump. And what I've heard from women is that when you get to the airport at a point in time, you could not get your breast milk through security. So I've heard that the worst experience for work for a woman was in the bathroom in an airport, pouring out their breast milk in the toilet. And I know so many women who come up to me afterwards and say that was the worst. I cried the entire time I poured. That's gold for me. And I knew I needed to keep my job. I knew I had to do this. And in order to do this, I have to and then I get questions in security. I'm like, what's this thing? Like, it's a breast pump. Like, what? An employee at Patagonia had this experience and said, never again. So she created a program, and it's in the book. Her name is Shannon Ellis. And she said, from now on, if a woman has to travel for work, we will pay for the baby and a traveling companion of their choice to go with them, to go there, so that the person can continue to work, just like all the men and all the women who are going to get to work, get the experience of doing that, and they have their baby with them and continue to breast pump and don't have to pour their breast milk. That is employee experience design. That's a very specific design and experience for a specific situation that is life-changing. By the way, that costs nothing. That benefit costs nothing. It's very little to do it. And for the lawyers out there, and there's going to be lawyers out there, we had no legal risk in it all. So and everyone talks about the significant, potential liability of it. Patagonia's done it for 30 years and never had an issue. Guild did it for 10 years and never had an issue. I just want to share that story because it's a beautiful way of having an employee design an experience that one leads to them just not crying over a toilet in an airport, but also they get to be productive. They're amazing. They do it. And by the way, the woman who did that the most and had 3 children they raised at Patagonia is now the co-CEO of the company.
Wow.
The woman who used that one in Guild 3 times, but 2 times with 2 kids when we introduced that program there, is now the CEO of Guild.
Amazing.
These are people that enabled them to lead the company because of they could actually do work and have children.
Dean, there's so much to unpack in that story. Thank you for choosing that particular story as a woman who has 3 children, 2 of whom are biological, and and having lived that personal experience, you've captured it so beautifully in the essence of what it means to be working an employee and having to navigate this like devastating mile marker in that journey of being a parent and trying to be excellent at your job. And what a powerful way to think
Why
about the
make
human.
someone choose?
Well,
Why make
I-
them make a choice? That's
yeah,
my thing. Like, why choose? You shouldn't have to choose between having a family and being amazing in work. That we force that choice to people. I don't think that is a fair choice. And by the way, most half of the family member doesn't have to make that choice
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well,
usually.
so when I think about the design of something that is, it's when when I hear employee experience, and certainly in our fellow journey and our careers in HR, we often think of it like it's almost like a, we're dealing with a cog or a line item, a head count, and we're trying to create things for the head count. But what you're describing is so much more. It's more cellular. It's more at the soul of what it means to be a human being who happens to fall under the umbrella of employee. Like I'm hearing this through that kind of that fresh lens that
100%. Yeah.
right. So we're not seeing this purely as we're creating something that's a head count or a point of data on an org chart, that we're looking at this at the deeply human level. And so if you can, you've already given us a few teasers in this conversation about, what's the arc
Yeah.
the kind of the outline. Give us some of the headlines of how a person should be when we're thinking about design, and we're thinking about
Yeah.
design that's going to deliver on all of that well-worn data around profitability
Yeah.
and retention and all the other important financial metrics. Give us a high-level overview of the
Yeah.
book.
We put in several frameworks. So we didn't just like, hey, just get ping pong tables and, have this, have a traveling companion program done. That is what it really is starting with a few things. One, we have a series of mindsets that you have to think about before you get into it. So we, again, this is not a to-do list, but it's just how you set your mindset when you go into the process of working with employees to set it. So the very first thing is this is about mutual value. And we debated the word, by the way, employee. Was it going to be human experience design? We're just human experience, or we debated that a lot. And we just thought with the concept of like understanding this as a worker. So it could be, contractor, anyone is doing work. And we kind of, that's what we meant by that. So anyone who is working with anyone is included in that concept. And we also talk about just it being employee experience. But we really want to go into this concept of not just very specifically working with employees to design. So the second one is you don't have to boil the ocean. You can start small on these little things, like little thing like a traveling companion. Doesn't impact a lot of people, but it matters so much. Some people have a pet. Do you want to have a pet? Is that pet important to you? Yes. So having pet insurance and enabling that and having people that have ability to have mourning days when the pet dies, those are things to think about too. And so those are just things, start small. You don't have to boil the ocean and like rewrite every single policy. You do want to find the why, like why are we doing this? That, and I do want to give an example of like a why that was a transformational experience we ended up doing. So we had a why that at Patagonia, that our skiers and climbers were leaving. And so they were quitting at a proportional rate than everyone else. Basically, everyone else was staying at Patagonia and they were leaving. This concept of just starting small, you don't have to boil the ocean. You can find little things like, helping someone through pet mourning or puppy or traveling companion. So you don't really write every single policy and put together a giant employee experience program or anything like that. Just little things matter. But a commitment to it is good.
Dean, I love just the practicalities of these lived human experiences that we all share in our life. And this sort of idea that we are not bringing that piece of our lives into the workplace. Like I think it's really important to have that attunement to recognize like people are bringing that. What are some additional examples that you might share with us?
Yeah. So we started with like, how do we find mutual value? Like wins for the company and wins for them. Second thing is like, how do you not boil the ocean? Little things matter. And then the third one is like, find the why. Like, why are you doing this? And this goes back to the Patagonia moment where we were losing our climbers and skiers. And they're important to us because we have to have people who climb and ski to build climbing and skiing equipment, which we saw a lot of. So we came back to them and said, why are you leaving? Like going to the exits, or why are you considering leaving? And they said, because we love to climb and ski. You hired us because we're climbers and skiers and we live in Ventura and there's no place to climb and ski. So we're in hell. This is like the worst place on the planet for us to live. We can surf, but we're not surfers. We're climbers and skiers. So like, what would be a solution for you? And they said, well, if we can have more time off, we just need one more day every once in a while so that we have time to go to places that we can climb and ski. We want to work with Patagonia. We actually love living in Ventura. But if we could have a little bit of both, work for Patagonia, live in Ventura, but then have, a 3-day time to get off, that would be wonderful. So then we thought, what if we did that for everybody? So we came up with the concept of a 4-day work week. You didn't work less. We actually condensed a day to 9-hour days. And then every other Friday you worked a half day, and every other Friday we closed the office. So everyone left. So it was, what ended up happening is 26 3-day weekends every other week. So people could go ski every other weekend. So the why is we critically need this talent. How do we create something that enables them to stay? Hopefully this makes them stay. And then let's do test and iterate. So this is part of, let's understand it. So we did decide to do it for everybody, because you can't just let 3 people have 3-day weekends. And we asked these questions. Tell us about the relationship with your spouse. Tell us about the amount of time you get to spend with your children. Tell us about your ability to do the things that you love on the weekends. Tell us about your ability to see the doctor and dentist. Tell us about the ability to do the things that you love and the ability to eat the healthy food that you want. A whole series of just life questions. Tell us about that. 6 months later, after implementing the 4-day work week and the 26 3-day weekends, we asked those same questions again. 92% of the people said they now had a better relationship with their spouse. 83% said they had more time to spend with their children. The climbers and skiers never left. 84% of the people said they had more time to buy healthy food. All those things. So when I am in a crowd of people and I do keynotes, I ask this question. How many of you have a spouse? How many of that's one of the most important people in your life? And if I told you as a result of working this company, you have a better relationship with your spouse. What if I told you as a result of this work for the company, tell me if you have kids? How many of you kids are the most important thing in your life? What do you value more than anything, more than yourself, maybe? Your children. If I told you you'd been able to spend more time and more valuable time with your children as a result of working in this place, would you come to work here? We never ask those questions. The 2 most important things to people, either spouse, family, children, or their pet. Those are wild, and their own personal health. Those are wildly important things, but we never ask people those questions. And so that's part of the thing is we have to change the nature of the question we're asking, the problem we're solving for. So what all this meant was productivity went up. Our climbers and skiers stayed. We had better product. And for the next 3 years, we made record profits and record revenue. That is shared value. That's a why. We all started with solving an employee for employees, actually solving a business problem because we need our climbers and skiers to say that every single person benefit. By the way, guess how much that benefit cost us?
I can't even imagine what.
0. Nothing. Cost us nothing. And so we've been, and now it's the most beloved benefit of the company. I call it the Hotel California. People check in, they don't check out. And then it's a tough one to do. You have to be courageous because you have to trust people to do work. And the thing is, people condense their work and they do in the time they need to do it. And there's a few other things, but the test and iterate is super important. But those are really, I think, the 4 important concepts around, mutual value, don't boil the ocean, stay small, start with why, and then, test and iterate. I don't do anything unless I start with the scientific method of what is my before and what I'm after. As a matter of fact, if I see in the past, I've seen a program that someone started, I'm like, did you do a test first? Do we know where we started? Like, no. I'm like, not starting the program.
Okay, so I mean, again, so practical, and I love that you're. I mean, we've known each other for a long time, and I love when I'm interviewing people and my head goes, I just got something. You know, for so long, I'm thinking about employee experience is almost exclusively about what happens while an employee is being an employee at work, and what you're describing, and it has so much foresight, is that an employee is never not an employee. It doesn't matter the place or the time of day or the proximity or the location. It's like you're designing for the whole employee experience, which is the whole
100%.
human experience. And when you think about what's happened since COVID, and we've started to see this sort of the work-life blending that has occurred in hybrid work, like I cannot imagine something more important to be on purpose about, which is the design of your employee experience. Like it would strike me that now more than ever, we have to solve for these things. We need to be more mindful of these things. But it's also not just about, like you said, throw a ping pong table and, free snacks in the break room. There's something much more cellular about the human in the relationship with work and what that means for the whole life. What else would you say?
There's, I mean, people always do a little bit of eye rolling when I talk about Patagonia or even Airbnb. Feel like, wish I worked at Patagonia and Airbnb. Good luck to you. So I do want to talk about employee experiences in really tough situations, and how you can do reframing and rethinking and go back to the essence of what it is to be a human, what people are looking for. So I wasn't just the head of HR at Patagonia. I was the head of HR of Sears and Kmart. Sears and Kmart, they're beloved brands both, but not during the time I was there. Both of those brands were surely in deterioration. So we were having massive layoffs every other week, every other month. Lots of really, the business was in the tank. We had a CEO that was on the cover of a national magazine that said worst CEO on the planet. So we have challenging brands. The sales are going down. We have layoffs, and our CEO just got voted worst CEO on the planet. I don't know if you could create a worse scenario to work. It's terrible. And so I was the head of HR. I'm like, what do I do? So I thought, why is everyone in HR? They're here typically to help people, typically. So I made that assumption. So I pulled these 6,000 people that we had in the HR department for a town hall. And I said, okay, we're on the Titanic. The iceberg has hit, and this ship is going down. Not only one ship, the iceberg hit two ships. So Sears and Kmart, this thing is, and we can all feel it. We can hear the noise. We can hear the boilers exploding. We can hear like the ship groaning, like people sliding down the deck, into the water, like all that scene from Titanic. We're watching in real life. And I said, right now, all those people are terrified. And so our job is to be the band. And we're going to be the best band. And we're going to stay here. And we're going to take all these three people and make sure, despite this, they have the best possible experience that they could have. And we're going to do amazing HR. We're going to get awards for it. Everyone's going to recognize it. And we're going to be cutting edge. And I promise you, you're going to be the best darn trombone player, best drummer, best singer, best flute player, best triangle player. I don't care. Best cymbal player. Whatever that is, you're going to be best at it. And when you get off this ship, I guarantee you, that the ship you get onto next will be better than the one you got in on here. I guarantee you. 15 years later, 22 people who were junior at Sears and Kmart are now CHROs.
22?
22. And I can't even count, maybe 30, 40, 50 more are report to CEOs in major companies. One of the persons on my team became the head of all digital transformation for Disney. Other ones are people who you recognize in brands that are heads of HR for some of the most significant companies in Chicago. So I have they not only did well in career, now they're in places where they can lead like that. And when I have a dinner with them, because we're really close still, I was like, talk about the time at Sears and Kmart. And they said, that was the best experience of my life on the Titanic.
Yeah.
So you don't have to work at Patagonia. You don't have to work at Airbnb. You can, if you happen to have the worst CEO on the planet, which is likely, you have to be really challenging environment to have layoffs, which is likely. Reframe and control what you can. I can't fix everyone's experience, but this group, I can give you love and kindness and support and help you learn and grow and help you move on to something great when that moment happens. That is being very intentional about the employee experience design. There was another moment where, when when a ship is going down, everyone's like, save yourself. They're all grabbing the life raft. Some people they're the ones who are driving the life racket and trying to jump in the boat. Well, that kind of happened a little bit. So my next meeting was like, okay, we're all in a giant rubber life raft, a rubber one, not a wood one, a rubber one. And every time you poke a hole in someone else's side of the raft, the whole raft goes down. I need this whole raft to float, and I need everyone in it. So when someone falls out, you don't applaud and take their stuff. I want you to pull them back in the raft and say, I'm so glad you're back here because you're about to fall on a raft too. So I can't predict this. We're on a wild rapid. We're going to crash into walls. It's going to be rough. It's going to be terrifying. And it's not going to be smooth sailing. We're in a rubber raft on class 5 rapids. And I need everyone, you pay attention, and we all have to row in the same direction. We all have to. So I'm going to go row, row, row. And you're going to be a damn good rower and a damn good flute player. So that was my follow-up. And so they all remember the Titanic and the river raft. So it's like this raft floating on this big river. So, those are my two takeaways of how you take challenging situations and you flip them and make them into glorious situations.
Yeah. So gosh, so much to unpack, notwithstanding the fact that both of your analogies included boats and water. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a prerequisite, but I think the analogies work really, really well, given that set of circumstances. I also really love the idea of encouraging people that are listening right now that this is, that the circumstances of where you are leading and the circumstances of where you are employed are just that. It's data, it's input, the choices that we can make with the variables that we can control. That's what I see is so empowering. So, Dean, before we talk about the reader reviews and a lot of the practical things that people can activate as lessons learned from your book, I want you to speak a bit more about the concept of being regenerative. I think that is such an important wisdom point, and it's not always the thing you see that's tied into the language of human resources or the language of employee experience. So say a bit more about that, if you would.
At Patagonia, we went through several transformations. One of the big transformations is we changed our purpose statement. The purpose originally was build the best product, do no unnecessary harm, and use business to inspire solutions to the environmental crisis. It's like a pledge of allegiance. Everyone could state it. You wasn't on the wall. You just knew it. Build the best product, do no unnecessary harm. And we all loved it. We thought that was really inspiring. We could do that. One day, Yvonne was on NPR and he said, we have a new business, new mission statement, a new purpose. We're in business to save our home planet. You're like, that saving the home planet is a lot different than doing no unnecessary harm. Where?
Well, higher calling.
Wow. Okay. Well, how are we going to do that? So Patagonia wasn't always the company it was. It was, climbing equipment and iron, and then it kind of evolved to what it is today. And so Yvonne's like, it's going to evolve again, and it needs to evolve. So we'll evolve it to a food company. And the reason to evolve it to a food company is because of To some extent, if we're going to save the planet, we have to do things that actually reverse climate change that don't just do it. We don't make, puffy jackets that kill the planet less than the other people's puffy jackets. So not a very good concept. Like if you're here to be an environmental company, you're like, yeah, we kill the planet slower. That's our motto. We kill the planet slower. We still kill it, but just slower than everybody else. So we moved to saving it. So that meant, after doing kind of research, what would that business model look like? So you start with a problem solve, save the planet in whatever we can do. So here is how traditional agriculture works. It's worked like this for thousands of years. Things go into the ground. And then when they grow, what they do is this thing that's growing starts to reach into the soil. And this rich microbial community starts to join, and it pulls all the nutrients from the soil into the plant, which causes the plant to grow. When it grows, it goes into the sky, and the plant sequesters carbon. So it pulls the carbon down and feeds the microbial community. So you've got this kind of rich things coming in here. And say the corn grows and has 3 years of beautiful corn in Iowa. And so the farmer would come back and thank you, corn. Thank you it's been a 1 year. Here's your annual performance review. You grew 3 pieces of corn. You get an excellent because I expected 2 years of corn. So you get a rating of 4.5. Rip. Then the farmer thanks the corn and rips into the ground where the corn grew. And then what happens is all of the carbon that was stored by the plant goes back into the air. So all the good happens, and then the microbial community is destroyed what happens when you do this over and over and over again to soil, then it's dead. It becomes, and so most of our soil that we actually eat food from is completely dead. So in order to make it work, we have to invest in fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides and a lot more water than it would take to actually grow the plant. So if the world switched to regenerative agriculture, where we put more into the ground versus than we take out. There's a lot of techniques about regenerative ag. It's a different way of farming. It requires different equipment, different ways of thinking, but it's possible. And when you do this, it takes a 3-year transformation like culture. And once you get to regenerative ag farming, it's beautiful. It takes less water. There are fewer pesticides, no herbicides. All these things start to work, and you start to innovate around this. For example, I went to a regenerative farm, and what they've done is used AI with lasers that know what every weed looks like. No herbicide. It just goes zip, 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 zip. So it saves the little baby broccolis and then just zaps the weeds. So if you're thinking about regenerative, not think about how to do a better herbicide. It's like, how do I get rid of the weeds? New technology. No one would have ever invented that if we hadn't forced them to think about how do you get rid of weeds without using poison. So I thought about the human experience, like, wow, what is an experience people have that happens once a year, that they have a goal and they're given a number and everyone hates it? Like the annual performance review, like everyone hates it. The manager hates it. The employee hates it. That's the worst experience we do. So HR created this torture device called the annual performance review, where you slice into people, you lose all the goodwill. Everyone hates their experience. No one likes it. Number 4.2, great. I'm like upset. So that's one. And then we invented let's see what performance is. Let's invent this, the engagement survey. So here's one of the questions. How much discretionary effort are you willing to give the company? And I'm like, 120%. Where does 20% come from? So we put in another torture device. Like we ask you once a year, how much more you can give the company out of your life to the company. So it's an extortion scheme. So we had HR, the people, invented 2 torture devices. One, the annual performance review and the annual employee extortion survey. And so we don't have to use the annual performance review. You don't have to use the annual survey. There are different ways of doing this. And as AI evolves, like the company I'm working with now, you never need an employee survey again, because like the weed killer with AI, I can tell what our behavior is right now in this conversation using AI to know that I'm building trust, psychological safety, collaboration, ideas, innovation. by the things that I'm saying and how you're responding. I don't need a survey to do that because I'm thinking about new technology. But if I wasn't thinking about how do I create better experiences for me and you, I wouldn't have thought of inventing the company that we invented. So my view, we came up with this concept instead of asking, are you willing to give discretionary effort, which is, if you read the book Dying for a Paycheck by Dr. Stanley Pfeffer and from Stanford, it actually tells the physical things. The cost of stress at work cost the economy $3.4 billion. So what happens is we make people sick, and they're like, we have some benefits. They're going to not charge you all of it for, but a little bit of money for the benefit we made you sick for. So you got mental health issues because you're totally stressed out. We have a little benefit for that too. You can have 6 visits to the doctor to fix that. After that's your job. So all these things we design, we're making people sick. Then we're making them pay us to fix it. Anyhow, the system's broken. We need to think differently. And that's what the book is about. We don't have all the answers, but we do know that we need to think differently. So here's the question we ended up with. Only one question I asked. For what I put into my work, I believe the company gives back equal or greater value to my life. For what I put into my work, I believe the company gives back equal or greater value to my life. That's in the book. The question is in the book. All these experiences I'm talking about are all in the book, so you don't have to take notes. But that question is really powerful. And what happens in that question, if you're brave enough to ask it, there isn't a single answer. I've been asking that question for a decade. What is value to me today? Like 10 years ago, I would have said my daughter Grace. Grace is married now. Now I would say something different. My point in life even changes what the value is to me for the company. So, or the ability to learn and grow, or to get a promotion, or all those things change in terms of life. And so and I've even found when people are having like, for what have I done to my work? It gives back equal greater value in my life. It was systemic issues. Like people were being mean to each other at work. There were systemic issues. Like, I had recruiting coordinators at Guild who were having the worst experience in the company. Very extractive. They're like, we hate this company. We hate our jobs. So I'm like, talk to me. All of them said the same thing. We get these job recs that aren't complete from the HR business partners, and then I can't post a job. And then the hiring manager calls me, because I'm the person in charge of posting jobs, and yells at me, why haven't you posted my job? And they're not going to throw the HR business partner under the bus because they want to take personal accountability. So like, I'm so sorry. So they beg the business partner to fix their rec. And then the second thing, they're like, we spend all our life having these amazing experiences for candidates. That's all we care about. And then the hiring manager, cancels the meeting at the last minute. So then I got to call the candidate and say, I'm so sorry for the second time. The manager can't make the meeting. They've had a personal emergency. And so you got to reschedule. I said, okay, 2 things. Let's work with the business partners to make sure this is a system they can agree to first. So we work with them. They agreed to the system, fix that. Second thing, I said, from now on, when a manager cancels a meeting, they call the candidate and apologize personally. And once they do that, their EA schedules the new meeting, not you. The EA fixed the situation because the EA did not want to schedule. So it's like, I'm going to wring your neck because I said your butt.
This interview. God bless the EAs, man.
They become the most engaged people in the company. They're like, and I changed their title to candidate experience specialists from recruiting coordinators, and they just be like,
game changer.
Again, experiences. Designing the experience from, okay, the system was fixed. Let's fix that. Another system and agreement was fixed. Fix that. The title was a little wonky. Fix that. Systems, design experience. I didn't say, here's how I'm here, Hero Dean, to fix it for you. Tell me what you need. Tell me what's broken. And I can use agency to make it better if I can.
All right, Dean, this is clearly not a single conversation in one podcast episode is not enough to gather the immense wisdom. And I'm so glad that you're giving us the tasters of what's in the book. So we're going to encourage folks to absolutely pick up this book. As we're wrapping for today's conversation, I am so struck by all the different ways that a person can think differently about design. And in the example you just gave with regards to recruiting, it doesn't cost anything. It requires an engaged leader to ask the right questions and begin to see the ways that we can start to make moves and shifts that can have a transformational experience. And it isn't about the expense of doing something, but rather a reordering of the collective human experience and the stakeholder experience in the process. So powerful. All right. What are some practical things? So when we think about people that are listening, what have you been hearing from folks reading the book? What are the ways that this book is being used? And then we'll just close with some rapid fire. Like if I were a leader, if I was an employee, like what can I do next? But first, what are people saying about the book?
First of all, they say it's transformational. So we had an amazing review from a person who only does business books. And it's like, this is an essential book. Within 2 days of free order, it was the number one best-selling HR book on Amazon. It's been the top 8 for culture. It is, and when hard copy came out 2 weeks ago, it went back up to one of the best-selling books on HR. So there's something about it that it's a nerve. But the thing that people say the most, gosh, it's easy to read. It's not too dense, and it's practical. And then I just feel like I'm listening to this like a human is like talking to me. There's information, there's data, there's things I can do. And it's a business book, and I've been like burning through it. I have to I look forward to the next page. That's what we wanted. And so you can just open this up and go to any part of this, just read that. The part that I love the most is the acknowledgement to my family. So be sure and read that about what I said about Grace and Mark. So that's my favorite part of the book. But people are talking about how it's just practical, and it's like things I can do, things that like out in the sky. So it's from Patagonia to Guild to Airbnb to literally practical things like I was telling you before.
Yeah.
So these are, and Guild was a tiny company, by the way, and I haven't got to tell the story, but it's fully remote. So this isn't for like everyone has to be in person like Patagonia. You don't have to be a Fortune 50 or 25 company like Sears. You could be a tiny little like 80-person startup in like Guild that is 100% remote and still have amazing experiences. So I wanted to share the breadth of companies so you can say, well, what about this? Or what about this? There's all sorts of ways you can do this. And that's what the book does, gives you options.
Well, it really is such a summary of your life's work and the work of your co-authors. Takeaways. If I'm a leader right now that I'm listening and I want to be able to implement, like, give me 3 practical things that I could do that would elevate the human experience, elevate human flourishing through employee experience design. So 3 practical takeaways.
I'm going to give you this. Doesn't sound as practical, but I love measuring energy. If you can condense your organization to do a pulse of energy, like 5, like highly energized to exhausted, and start getting that information, it is the best way to get data about what's going on in the company in real time that we have now, other than using Instill, the company I work for. But by getting energy level, you can compare it to anything. So just really quick, when I get energy level, for example, from Guild, one time there was a shooting at a nightclub where 8 people died 2 blocks from the building. Energy levels tanked. So we had to do therapists and all these things to help people through this really challenging situation. So I had to have already had a history of energy to know that it tanked. And then on that day, and we had to do interventions about mental health with employees, and we could see it slowly go back. We tested on-sites because we were fully remote. So what happened when you have an on-site with people? Energy levels go up, and you've got a halo of about 4 months. And it's supposed to go down, but it's always 10% higher than it was before. These are data points that you can use to navigate whether you're going to do on-sites or not. How do you handle world events? How do you do this? So that's my first one. One is love your people knowledge person. Data. Don't guess. Measure everything. Data. your people data person, your data person should be so close. And the other thing is big company, little company, whatever. Every single person, you don't have to be a manager to create amazing experience. You don't have to work for a for-profit company. This is designed for nonprofits, organizations. That's why it says organizations, not companies. Anyone listening here can, if you have a team or people that you work with, and to get work done, you work with other people, you are part of the experience. And so you have agency to create better experiences for the people around you or worse experiences for the people around you. You have choice. And so my challenge is you don't have to be a leader. You don't have to be a head of HR. You don't have to be the CEO. You can be someone who is just on a really amazing team and talk with them and have influence on your team. And I always talk about the best way to get a job is to get caught doing it. And if you get caught driving amazing experiences for employees, following stuff in here, amazing things happen to you too. I believe good is a boomerang, so is bad. So put good stuff out there, whatever you're doing. This book isn't just designed for managers and leaders, it's designed for you.
I love that. Well, and as we wrap for today, I want to ask the reverse question. If a person who's listening does not see themselves in that manager or leader role, but they're coming at this from an employee, what are three reasonable requests or three ways that they can bring visibility to this subject matter to the people with whom they work in a way that could improve employee experience or at least ignite a new conversation? What would you recommend?
Well, I think if you see something happening that is not a good experience, don't wait for HR. Don't wait for a manager to fix it. Don't wait for someone else. Like you thinking like you have more agency than you think you do. And you have more power. It's a lot more fun when you're a part of the solution than like I call it the dead bird syndrome. Like when a cat comes in and like comes in as like a dead bird is like pet. And we're like, what do I do with the dead bird? Okay, you dispose of the dead bird. So I don't like people to bring dead birds to me, and I tell them that. I say, bring me a solution, and we'll talk about that or maybe some options. But don't bring me dead birds. So don't bring people dead birds. Go when you have a challenge, see if you can work on it, solve it. You probably can. And when you solve it, you're the one that learns from it and you gain from it. So you're more powerful, you're more educated, you know how to do this the next time. So don't wait for anyone else to read this book and do this work. You can do it as just a colleague sitting next to another colleague and making
Okay.
sure you can pull people together and like, let's talk about the experience we're having. Anything we could do different. You can do this in coffee or whatever. So you don't need to be a leader to do this.
I love it. So I'm gonna unpack three really practical things I think I heard you say. First of all, let it be stated, no dead birds. That's a really, really good metaphor and one that I think will be a soundbite takeaway. Secondly, I heard, take on the challenge to try and solve for the thing. So it's not only don't just drop a problem and wait on HR, but really get the benefit of learning how to solve for it, even even if it becomes hard or unsolvable. There's a certain growth that happens. And I love this idea of employees, people, colleagues coming together and actually engaging the book together. That sense of we don't have to wait for our bosses to read this to have impact and influence. We can all gain knowledge and understanding and experience from the wisdom of the book as a mechanism of being impactful. And so, as always, what this is not enough time. So we're doing it again. I'm not sure when. Friends, all of Dean's information, including how to access this book, will be available in the show notes. Friend, before we leave for today, any closing thoughts, any closing words of encouragement that we can leave with when we think about what it takes to elevate human flourishing and frankly, why? Like, what's the why?
Hmm. I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, but what I signed in the books, did I mention that as a part of the
You did. Say
podcast?
it again. Yeah, say it again, though.
That's what I wanted to leave you with. And this is it, which is, hey, person, Debbie, may everyone that knows you and spends time with you be better off than when you found them. And if you take one thing away from this, can you answer that question? Like the people that know you and hang out with you, are they better than when you found them? And if you can live a life and do that, then you've lived like, I don't know, if one person in this room, if everyone did it to one person, then you've done better.
I
That's
love
my,
it. Well, I'm going to end with that closing testimony. I'm pretty confident you've touched more than one life, but I can say the answer in this life is a yes. I can't wait till our next time. I'll see you soon. Thanks for being here. If today's conversation sparked something in you, we hope you'll carry it forward with curiosity, compassion, and courage. Subscribe to the show, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Until next time, keep exploring what it means to be fully human.